Sunday was possibly the final game in Seattle. The Sonics delivered for the home crowd with a dramatic win over the Mavericks. Kevin Durant scored twice in the final 45 seconds. Seattle won 99-95. Now, this could be the end of an era in Seattle. The franchise opened with a loss at the Warriors in 1967. They've reached 3 NBA Finals and won the 79 Finals when Dennis Johnson was MVP. Their franchise record for wins is 64, set in 1996. And the all-time land of the lattes, apparently, where they lead 1,075 to 563. I got to believe the lead is much bigger than that. But let's bring in Rick Bucher and Mark Stein again. Rick, there are still plenty of permutations that could come out in this scenario. What are you hearing lately?
The latest, obviously, is that the former owner, Howard Schultz, is planning to file a suit against Clay Bennett, the current owner, suggesting that there was a breach of contract in the terms of purchasing the team. And one of the clauses in there, which was a legally binding clause, is that Bennett had to make a good faith effort to try to keep the team in Seattle. And now we have these emails that suggest that he was not trying to do that during that first year of ownership. So the idea is not for Schultz to get the team back necessarily, but to somehow regain control of it and then be able to sell it to Steve Ballmer or other interested parties in Seattle. For any of that to happen, of course, they would have to get approval from the state legislation that they would be willing to be party to building a new arena, because no matter what happens, NBA basketball cannot stay, Mark, in Seattle unless they get a new arena, even if the owners on Friday approve that move, which I'm hearing some owners are reluctant to do. Of course, they say that, but then you get them into a room sometimes and it's a different story.
Yeah, and from what I was told today, the league's relocation committee appointed by David Stern has already decided on Friday when the Board of Governors meet, it will recommend to the owners that the Sonics should move to Oklahoma City. And typically, when it gets to that point that a committee appointed by the commissioner makes that kind of recommendation, it's very rare that I actually can't remember it ever being overturned. So it looks like the owners, there will be enough of a vote to suggest that the Sonics should move, and then at that point it goes to the court system. Surely negotiations will continue, because from the commissioner's office at this point, they're so frustrated. They feel like Seattle, just like the Rockets discovered in Houston, when you're the third team trying to get a new building, there's a new baseball stadium, new football stadium. Getting public funding for that third building is difficult, and David Stern's been beyond discouraged for months.
All right, Mark and Rick, we'll get back with you in a moment. Obviously, you guys played a long time in the NBA. Memories from Seattle?
Oh, without a doubt. For me, I played there 1 year, and we were able to win 61 games. I played with Gary Payton, Nate McMillan. It was his last season with the Sonics. His jersey hangs up in the rafters there. And to me, Seattle is probably one of the 10 best sports cities in America. I mean, they have an amazing fan base. It's really unfortunate that they haven't been able to resolve this issue of a new arena. I can say that they definitely do need one, because the place that they play now is a bit antiquated, and it's unfortunate that the legislature hasn't been willing to want to allow that arena to be built, because the other facilities they have there with the football stadium and the baseball facility as well, those are amazing. It'd be nice to see a new basketball arena and to see the Sonics stay in Seattle.
I agree with you. I think it's a terrible loss, really, for the NBA if they leave. I spent most of my career in the Eastern Conference, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time in Seattle as an opposing player, but I do know it's a great city. I remember the atmosphere in that building. For me, more than anything, it's just a tradition of what this team, this organization has really meant to the league. You're talking about a long, long history of success prior to the last few years when they've kind of hit rock bottom. They're in rebuilding mode now. But this was a team that you knew was going to figure prominently in the Western Conference playoff race. And you're going to have to go through some great players and great teams in Seattle over the years. And I just remember how supportive the community was of the Seattle Supersonics. You went in there, you knew it was going to be a very difficult place to go play. So it's sad for the NBA. The team with that kind of tradition might not be there.
You wonder if they had a hockey team as well, and the two could go together on the arena, if they might not be able to do that. And there are some hockey franchises that are looking to move, so possibly Seattle.
You just settled the whole thing. Look at you.
I did.
You figured it out just like that.
Gary Bettman and David Stern get on the phone.
They used to work together.
They used to, that's right. He used to be his left-hand man. All right. Was that left-hand man or right-hand?
I think
You know what? We should say left once in a while. He could be on the other side.
Hornets game is done, and when we come back, we'll have Rick Bucher's West Coast Bias.
In Olympia, I think we were all lied to. I am shocked. I'm about as frustrated as I could be.
If you could say anything to Mr. Bennett, what would you say?
I couldn't say it on camera. Honestly.
Myself, I would tell him stay in Oklahoma and try for another team because you can't have the Sonics.
Brian Robinson heads up the grassroots organization, Save Our Sonics.
Why are you so confident that this is a battle this city can win?
Because we have 2 years remaining on our lease after this year. We have a mayor who is determined. Clay Bennett was proven by email this week to be dirty. This is worse than referee scandals. We believe at the end of the day that there's a limit to how dirty the NBA can allow things to get, and this has crossed the line.
Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban says he plans to vote against the relocation bid, saying it just isn't a good business move for the NBA.
One of the things I've learned in owning the Mavs is that I don't really own the team. The community owns the teams. There's so much equity value, there's so much emotional value, there's so much community value that exists after 40 years that I don't think you can just move it and replace it.
Clearly, it's something the team is trying not to dwell on, at least not publicly. But with the worst record in the West, just 19 wins, an all-time franchise low, how much has the drama off the court affected play on it?
It's been something we've been dealing with for about 2 years. You know, there's been talk about the team moving ever since, you know, the team was sold. So it's something we've learned to deal with. You know, we've had a bad season. It's been a tough season, but I don't know if we can blame very many losses on the fact that, you know, there's possible relocation.
The situation hasn't changed. So all we can do is come and play basketball every day. That's our job, is to play basketball. If there's a new arena, then, you know, it'd be great. We'll be here for a long time. If there's not, then you know, we may not be.
And if this was the Sonics' last game in Seattle, they ended with a rare come-from-behind victory in the final minutes against the Mavericks. The game-winning shots, ironically, coming from Kevin Durant, the young star Seattle had hoped would be the franchise savior, offering fans a glimpse of what could be the future, but possibly just not Seattle's.
I almost cried, to be honest with you, because it was, people saying this might be the last game in Seattle, and, the fans came out the night, even though we're not in the playoffs, they came out and supported us, and, it was a great feeling.
People saw how good of a city, this can be. Anybody else here tonight could see this is a great place to play when things go well and when people come out and support us, and, it would definitely be a shame because this is a great place to play.
Aline Dominguez reporting from Seattle. The governor of Washington State is Christine Gregoire, and she joins us now on the phone. Governor, you have said famously that you have felt lied to with the emails coming to light. As recently as this morning, David Stern said that he believes that the owners of the Sonics were dealing in good faith. What's your reaction to Stern's position?
Well, I've got a lot of regard for the commissioner, and I felt exactly as he did all the way along until literally last Thursday when I read these emails for the first time in the newspaper. And I think they shed a completely different light on the subject and completely different than anything and everything that had been said to all of us here in this state. So that's why I sent the letter to the commissioner and the board to say, what more is there? Is this just a sampling of something more to be told? And while this litigation goes on, we would ask them to either deny or postpone.
How far is the state and the city, how far are those two entities prepared to take this matter?
Well, it's clear to me that the city has every intention of enforcing its lease at our Key Arena. And so I expect that to go until the team has run out its lease. But I also believe those who sold the team did so believing in good faith that the new owners were going to keep the team here in Washington State. And now that they've been told that they did not live up to that clause in the contract, I think they're steadfast that they're going to bring litigation and have the whole thing rescinded. So why in the world would the board take action now when the literal contract to sell the team is in question?
What is there, though, in the recent history, Governor, with 4 years of failed attempts to get the legislature to help out in a tax package here for the arena? What is there in recent history to suggest that there is a solution to be had here?
Well, very clearly, it came too late in the legislative session for the membership to be worked. But the leadership of the legislature made a very dramatic comment when they said they are confident that they can find the necessary funding to renovate Key Arena. And so I take them literally at their word. They have always lived up to their word. And so I think it's very clear that that can happen. But it couldn't happen in the last waning days of the short legislative session when the membership really had not been worked or been informed about really what was going on.
All right, Governor Christine Gregoire, thank you for your time, ma'am.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. And we turn now to Percy Allen, who covers the Sonics for the Seattle Times. Percy, this is a familiar refrain in American sports, teams looking to move. What is unique, though, about the Seattle situation to your mind?
Well, it's unique because never before in the history of the NBA have you had a franchise that's been so entrenched in one community and then they attempt to move. Like, you have to remember here that the Sonics went to the NBA Finals in 1978. They won a world championship in 79. They went back there in 96. You know what? You have a strong fan base that is here. Regardless of all of the market size and the Fortune 500 companies, you have 41 years of history with this team and fans who have supported this team. And just like in the report earlier, you know, the crowd on Sunday was tremendous. There were 16,000 people strong there, and when like
could have been awake though.
Well, could have been, but fans had every reason to give up on this team. They are dead last in the Western Conference, and yet they have come out time and time again. So this isn't like a situation where like you have problems getting fans in the seats. People are showing up. There are people here that really want this team here.
I know that the release of these emails as part of the discovery in the federal lawsuit made a lot of people angry, but tangibly, aside from the lawsuit, how has it changed matters on the ground?
Well, I think it paints a picture of duplicity, that even though Clay Bennett and his group were actively doing things up front to get a $500 million arena and rent it, and let's keep that in mind, he was asking for the world here, but behind the scenes there were conversations going on with this ownership group that was actively talking about going back to Oklahoma City. I mean, what the first one was 2 weeks after the sale. We're like talking about 2 weeks after the sale. They were talking about how can we get this team back to Oklahoma City.
Now, possible relocation vote, unless it's postponed, is Friday. Beyond that, what's the next keep date here, quickly?
Well, there's a lot. You know, there's
about 15 seconds.
Okay, there's the June 16th trial between the city and the team, and that's going to determine a lot.
All right, Percy Allen, we appreciate your thoughts from Seattle. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Next up, our first Report Sports Nation poll question. Where should the Sonics play next season? Where should they be playing next season? Oklahoma City.
We'll talk about those